Most leaders who get stuck get the same advice. Be more confident, have more executive presence, get more visibility. But what if you have already all of that and that promotion still is not coming? That was me. I'm one of the top 2% when it comes to being an extrovert, and that energy is what carried me through from being a broke geologist to a senior director in one of the biggest global banks. I got promoted fast over and over again, but then I hit a wall. It turned out those same extroverted strengths are the one holding me back. So today, I'm going to walk you through 3 hidden challenges of being an extroverted leader, the strengths, where they trip you up, and how you can build systems and shifts to take advantage of those strengths. If you're watching this, there's a good chance that leadership came easy to you. You're the one who speaks up first. You're the one who rallied the team. You're the one who command the room. And you're also being rewarded your entire career for those specific traits. So here's where it gets uncomfortable. Researchers tested something called Babel hypothesis. They wanted to predict in a group who becomes a leader. Is it experience? Is it intelligence? Is it the quality of ideas? It turned out that it's none of them. It's who talks the most. So what that means for us as an extroverted leaders, that means that we are selected as leaders at least partly because we sound like a leader, because we talk the most in the room, we speak up the first. There's another research that was done on identical twins, and researchers wanted to know if leadership is more of nature versus nurture. They find out that 30% of being a leader comes through traits. So those are things like, being an extroverted and basically talk more, but also physical attractiveness, intelligence, and few other specific genetically related leadership. So that's the head start if you're an extrovert. However, 70% of who becomes a successful leader was related to nurture. So people, regardless of if they had even that 30% genetics, people who really focused on leadership learning, feedback, emotional intelligence, and all those skills that you require to be a leader. That means that if you're leaning too hard on things that come easy for you, you will get promoted regardless of how good you are until a certain level. But eventually that gap between that leadership skill sets and your natural genetic traits is going to catch up to you. So here are some practical shifts that you can do to make sure that you take advantage of that 30% head start, but you're also building that 70% leadership skill that you require. The first one is to run an audit gap. When I got stuck in my career and I passed over for a promotion that on paper I had all the qualifications for, the first thing I did is I selected 6 people, 2 from my team that I knew they're not going to be hesitant to give me feedback, 2 of my stakeholders that I knew that I have some tension with, and 2 people from management. 1, my current manager, and 1, my previous manager. Why my previous manager? Because they work with me, they know me really well, and they've seen different situations, my strengths and my opportunities to grow. But they also are not my direct manager, so they're not gonna be hesitant to give me a feedback, thinking that, it might be demotivator. They're gonna be more blunt in giving me feedback freely. When those 6 people gave me feedback, and I really encourage you to do the same, then I put together a list of what is the pattern that I see when it comes to my gaps. And for me specifically was more around relationship management, and it all kind of comes to more of an umbrella of emotional intelligence, to understand when I go in a room, to read the room really, to know when this is the meeting, when I should take charge and lead the meeting, and when is it that when I should be a fly on the wall, basically. The next shift is that you want to pick one of those opportunities that you identify, just one, and put together a 90-day plan how to fix it. So if it's emotional intelligence, it could be also domain knowledge. You might not have enough of domain knowledge and you've just kept moving up without getting some of the granularity that you require. So if that's the case, that's the easiest one to fix. You just buy some books and take some courses and talk to people who are knowledgeable. It's really easy to build those knowledge gaps. But if it's emotional intelligence, of course, it's much longer than 90 days to really get to where you want. But still, you can make very visible progress through 90 days. If it's an emotional intelligence, there are a ton of videos out there, courses, books especially. What had helped me more than anything is that I always set up my meetings 5 minutes late. And in Outlook, because we use Outlook, there's an option, automated option, that when you set up meeting, it's just gonna start 5 minutes late. What that helps me to do is to quickly reflect on my previous meeting. Am I proud of how I presented myself in that meeting? Did I have the right self-awareness? Did I have the self-regulations? Did I identify the mood of the room? And just quickly reflect on how I did. And then also quickly look at what's my next meeting and prep myself for it. Is this a meeting when I teach? Is this a meeting when I coach? Is this a meeting when I lead? Is this a meeting when I learn? Like, what is that meeting? And especially if it's more of a meeting when I know there's some tension, to kind of remind myself that don't go in with opinions, go in with questions, go in with curiosity. And the shift number 3 is to build a feedback loop. So when you're an extrovert, especially if the opportunity to grow is more around emotional intelligence, usually the feedback is not black and white. And so you want to keep connecting with the same people that you reached out to, or at least a few of them, every 90 days or every 6 months, and just have a chat with them to see what they have noticed and if that perception around you is changing. Now, once you know what's missing, the next question is that which of your extroverted strengths is making the biggest damage in your career? And surprisingly, it's the one that everyone's complimenting you on. The next challenge is the confidence blind spot. So here's the thing about being an extrovert. We project confidence. Now, I know there are a lot of introverts who are confident and a lot of extroverts who are not confident, but because we usually speak up first, we show up in those social situations, we project confidence. And here's another point. Generally speaking, confidence being seen as competent. We've been all in those meetings when somebody says something really confidently, and generally speaking, we assume that they've done their homework, and that's the reason why they're confident. Now, here's where it can trip you. Research shows that when we are highly confident, it's not only how others gonna see us because we project confidence, but we also change how we see the world. We start being closed off to the new information coming in and thinking that our perspective is the true perspective. Now, here are some practical rules to make sure that you're taking advantage of your confidence rather than allowing it to trip you up. The first one is arrive with questions, not positions. Once in my career, there was a problem and we built a product to resolve that problem, and it turned out to be a really successful delivery. And as a result, I built a lot of domain knowledge around that specific problem. Then I moved to something else that looked very similar and they had the same problem. And because I already had that success of building something similar, plus me being naturally very confident, I showed up in the meeting already with a position that I know how to solve that problem. And it took me a few weeks before I heard someone said something and things started to click that, sure, there are a lot of similarities, but there are huge nuances here that if I wasn't perhaps lucky, or if I wasn't curious enough to receive that specific key information, I would have gone and built something that had no use and potentially wasting a year or two on that product, which was really scary. It was such a big wake-up moment for me that when you go to a meeting, go with questions, not with positions, even if you think that you're an expert in that domain and you have a lot of confidence as a result. The next rule is speak last, not first. even if it's a meeting that you're gonna lead, and sometimes we just have to open the meeting because it's a meeting that we set up. You open the meeting, but then you pause so everyone else talk. You don't have to be always the first person who speaks. Rule number 3, replace why with I'm curious. When you go and ask a question that starts with why, people naturally feel defensive. When you say, why are we doing something this way? They naturally feel that you're trying to blame them for something bad that happened. Now you can ask the exact same question, fundamentally the same, but it started with I'm curious. And that I'm curious, especially with that tone, right away makes people feel that you're inviting them, so together you solve a problem rather than blaming them. That has been probably one of the biggest shifts that I've done in my career, because I ask a lot of questions. I'm curious. I genuinely want to understand how things work. And that asking or starting with I'm curious rather than why has been such a game changer in my meetings. The next one is when somebody pushes back on you, thank them out loud and basically encourage people to push back on your ideas and challenge you on things, especially your own team. Because if you don't allow that happen, sooner or later, you're gonna build a team of yes ma'am and yes sir. And that basically is a recipe for you falling off a cliff because you made a mistake, because you kind of closed the door to any feedback, especially from people who are closest to the work. Rule number 5 is one of my favorites. Count to 5 or even 10 after asking a question. As extrovert, we do not like the silent. It makes us uncomfortable, generally speaking, especially for me. So when you ask a question, and sometimes you're in a meeting when people are more on the quiet side and they're not sure, it takes time for people to reply back to you. And if you answer your own question, instead of waiting for that uncomfortable silence to sink in and somebody start talking, then you basically are closing the feedback loop again, and you're not letting people to give you ideas so you can have all of the informations before making a decision. Challenge number 1 is about if you're leaning too hard in that 30% instead of building that 70% leadership skills. And challenge number 2 is if you're not being intentional about your confidence and really building systems to bring you the information that you require before making a decision. But this challenge number 3 is what makes or breaks your career in the long run. It might not impact you when you're in your junior levels or even early mid-career, but it definitely will impact you as you're becoming more and more senior in your career. And that is depth deficit. If there's one thing that extroverts crush, is that first impression. We can go to a room full of strangers, full of senior executives, and we can leave a great first impression on most of people at least. It's that energy, that feeling comfortable, that really being at ease in those social circumstances. But here's a surprising research I found. When researchers tracked how people perceive extrovert in a working group, they found out that initially they have a lot of influence and they're being seen highly. However, over time, that influence declines because basically we're good at building a wide network, but we're not that good at building depth. So we build that wide network with shallow root, which is great when we're junior or even in our early mid-career, because at that level, you need a lot of people to know you, to know that you exist, that what is it that you do. So it's great, it's very helpful, and it's gonna give you a lot of opportunities. But as you move to more senior levels, it's all about who trusts you the most, because a lot of decisions about opportunities are being made behind the closed doors when somebody has to go to bat for you, because the opportunities as you move up the ladder becomes more and more scarce. So it's all about who's going to really fight for you in those closed doors to give you that opportunity, and why somebody should fight for you. if they barely know you. So building those deep relationships is really what makes or break a career in the long. Here are some of the steps I build in my career to make sure that not only I'm building a wide network, but at least for some of them, I'm gonna have those deep, meaningful, trusted relationships, which is actually really rewarding as well. Step number 1 is to build your top 15 list. You can go and look at the whole network of people that you know, and then identify your top 15. These are people that you look up to, that you genuinely like them. This is not about some fake relationships building. You can't do that for deep relationships. So you better find those people that you actually really like them and you think that you click with them really well. The next step is probably a little bit painful. Put in front of each of those names, is this a known or a trusted relationship? Do you think that person gonna go to war to give you an opportunity, or they haven't been with you that much, they don't know you that well, you haven't done your homework and you haven't built that relationship for them to do that for you? Then you wanna pick 5 of them that you really wanna deepen your relationship with them in the next either 3 months or 6 months, and probably 6 months is a more reasonable time frame. And when you pick those 5, you want to go and set up meeting with them if you don't have regular one-on-one with them. And this time, instead of you talking, instead of you providing some sort of a status update, try to listen, try to go personal, try to understand and genuinely be curious about that person beyond the value that they're providing you. Again, building deep relationships is not about how can I make this person like me so then I can gain this ABC. It's really about genuinely about building those human deep relationships. In the next step, you want to follow up with value, not visibility. Based on the conversation you had, do your homework. So if they're talking about certain situation, go and read a little bit more about it. Maybe you find a useful article that you want to share with them. Or maybe there's something that you remember afterward that you're gonna go back and send them a note. But you wanna build those relationships through those follow-ups, doing your research, getting to know them. And the last step is to reflect quarterly. Every quarter, you wanna take a look at that list and really evaluate. Are you getting closer to building meaningful, deep relationships? And if not, what is not working? And I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Building deep relationship takes years. This is not one of those things that you can take a pill or you can shortcut your way through it. You have to really put in the work and be genuine also about that relationship. Now, if any of this resonated with you, leave a comment down below. I'm really curious to know how your experience has been. And if you want to learn more about active listening, watch this video next. See you next one.